Hi Stampin' friends, welcome back. It's Sandi here. Today I'm going to do a smooshing background using Distress Oxide Sprays and create this card also using the Simon Says Stamps Friendly Flowers stamp set that was in their recent April card kit. I'm working on top of my Waffle Flowers water media mat and I'm using Distress Oxide Sprays, Mermaid Lagoon, Speckled Egg, and Twisted Citron. You also need a spray bottle of water. Okay, let's get inky. Starting with the speckled egg, I'm spritzing some down on my mat and I'm taking my watercolor paper and I'm smooshing it right into the ink, and then I'm going to heat set. I heat set each layer, and this piece of cardstock or watercolor paper is 3.5 by 8.5. So I cleaned off my mat and I'm changing over to the Mermaid Lagoon, and you'll see here that it's a little bit dark, so I'm going to add a spritz of water just to lighten it up a little bit and get it running a little bit more as well. So again, I'm smooshing my paper into the ink and getting a whole pile of it on there this time. And you do work in layers. It's kind of cool how they layer over top of each other and the colors sit on top of each other. So you can still use the ink that's on there, just add a little bit more water to it and continue with your smooshing. And I've got one white side there that I'm trying to get some more ink into. There we go. A little bit more there, and again heat setting it, and I heat set it for longer than I actually show you in the video. I just figured that you didn't really need to watch all of that. This one I'm giving you the full-blown, this is how long it takes to dry. Okay, so adding a little bit more, trying to get some of those white spots filled in. I am leaving a few white spots for the green, which is up next. So use a piece of paper towel and some water and clean your surface off before you start with the next color. It wasn't too terribly important when we were going from the light to the dark blue, but now we're changing over to green, so I'm cleaning it a little bit better than I normally do. So again, this is Twisted Citron, and I'm shaking it right now just to get the paint mixed around because it's been sitting for a bit. And 3 will be more than enough. And again, this is quite a bright color, so I'm diluting it a little bit with water and coming in with my card and filling in more of those white spots. And I'm overlapping some of the blue as well. And at the end, I show you the two different cards. It's really hard to get to the same, but you get neat designs every time you do this. So again, heat setting it. And I still have some more ink there, so I'm going to wet it up a little bit and add another layer of the green because I have a whole bunch of blue that's sitting there with no breaking of the green. But my flower is going to be covering most of it anyway. And there you go. I think I'm happy with that one. So moving on, we're going to do a little bit of ink splatter, and that's where these little holes in the side of the media mat are so cool. Add a little bit of paint, add a little bit of water, and I actually practice my splatter on the side of the media mat just to make sure I'm getting the right size dots that I want. So I'm adding the green here, and I'm cleaning my paintbrush in between. Now I'm going to get out my Gamsel Tambi watercolors, and I'm going to use the gold from this one and add a whole bunch of water to it to get it nice and runny so that I can have some larger splotches. And you see that my splotches are pretty small, so I'm adding more and more until I can get them a decent size. And it's nice to have a little bit of gold on there because I'm going to be adding some gold sequins as well. So it's nice to have a little bling in the background. Okay, moving on, we're going to do the flowers. And this is the beautiful stamp set from Simon Says Stamps. It's called Friendly Flowers. It was part of their April card kit. If it's sold out, you can still buy all the elements separately. I'm using my Misty, and I have a piece of cardstock vellum inside there, which means it's a little bit thicker than the regular vellum. And you want to get rid of any fingerprints and anything with your static. I'm using Versamark ink because I'm going to white heat emboss this onto the vellum. And so ink your stamp up really, really well. Push firmly all over the face of your Misty to make sure that you get a good stamped image. And of course, covering it with the embossing powder, shaking off the excess, and then we're going to heat set it. And a tip about the heat setting, because it's vellum, you don't want to spend a long time with your heat gun pointed at it. So what I do is make sure that my heat gun is good and hot, and then it only takes a couple of secs to melt the embossing powder. You want to make sure that you stay at least 4 inches away from your vellum as well. Otherwise, if you get too close to it, you're going to warp it. So right now I'm checking the heat, and it should be good because I just did the background. So I'm just popping in there, and you'll see this goes really quick. Here I'm showing you I die cut my background with the Picket Fence Studio Slimline nested rectangles, and it gives a nice little stitch line around the outside edge. I really like them, and I have linked them in the bottom of this video. So now we need to make our card base. So this is a 7 by 8.5 piece of hammer mill, and I am scoring and folding it at 3.5 to create my slimline card base. Okay. And I'm just kind of dry fitting everything, showing you what I'm going to do. But first I want to stamp a sentiment onto my background. So I'm pulling my flower off and putting it back into my stamp set. I try and do that instead of laying them aside because I keep losing stamps. They get stuck on something and they disappear. And then you end up having to go buy the stamp set again. You guys have that crazy problem too? So I'm dry fitting my flowers into there just so I can see how much space I have for my sentiment. And I'm kind of lining that up. And then I'm just going to stamp it in black ink. And I'm using the Simon Says Stamps Intense Black, which is great for this. And I do it a couple of times because it's watercolor paper. It's a little bit on the lumpy side. So it's nice to get a nice dark image on that. There we go. Love it. When I put these cards together, I like to use score tape because it's nice and strong. The watercolor paper is a little bit thicker than regular cardstock, plus we've gotten it wet, plus we've added paint to it, so it likes to warp a little bit. I fold them backwards with my hands, as you saw me a second ago, and then I add lots of tape. I'm putting 3 strips down this side, and then I'm going to turn the other way, and I'm going to do the same thing, put 3 down the other way. And this stuff is really easy to tear. You don't even need to use scissors, and then you just peel back the protective cover, and it sticks really well to the card fronts. And it's nice because it's professional looking. It stays nice and flat. It's not warped. So it gives you a really pretty finished product. It just takes a few minutes to get all of those pieces off of there. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to center it onto my card front, and I've got at least, if not more than, 1/4 of an inch all the way around, so a nice white frame. And I flip them over to the back to press them down just in case I've got some ink on my fingers. Now I'm going to use some foam squares to add my flowers, and you see that I've cut them out. It just took a couple minutes to do that. The one thing you have to remember is you can see your adhesive through your vellum, so be careful about placing these little foams, and we're going to be covering most of them with sequins. The flower centers are quite solid, so I hid them under there, and I will add sequins to the rest of them. So here we go with the sequins. I'm using the Stay Gold sequins and the Spring Green sequins, both from Simon Says Stamps, and I have them in my little Studio Acacia trays, and I really don't know why, because I end up dumping them out looking for a certain color anyway. The gold I got away with, but you see right here, I got to flick these all out of here because I'm looking for all the blue ones. They're a little bit bigger than the green ones, and so they cover my little foam pieces a little bit better. And then I'm going to use white glue and the Acacia wand, embellishment wand, to add these little guys right when I finish messing around with how many I want on here. There we go. So then you just take your glue in your left hand and your wand in the other hand, your embellishment stick, and just add these little guys with the glue. So I put the gold sequins on the background where we did the smooshing with the green and the blue, and then I used the little green ones from the Spring Green sequins on the actual flowers themselves, just to add a bit of color. So there we go. There's my finished cards. I hope you like them. All the products that I used today are listed underneath this video. There's also a link over to my blog where I have them listed, along with the PDF file for today's project. And if you liked it, please consider giving me a thumbs up and sharing my video with your friends. I'd appreciate that very much. And until next time, toodles and happy stamping.